the beginning, you are hungry and you do take clients. And what happens is if they are not aligned, they become a service issue down the road, right?
And they become a lesson.
Yes. My grandfather always says you have to pay your tuition. So like that's part of your tuition, right?
Well, hello and welcome back to the Amanda Kaufman Show. And I am so excited to be doing this episode on coaches that don't suck with a coach that definitely doesn't suck. And hello, April Roberts. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Amanda. I'm super excited to be here today.
Oh my gosh. So I'm excited to have you because you have been so generous in hosting me on your podcast a couple of times now. And we kind of had the tables turn a little bit by having you over onto mine. So thank you so much for coming.
I know, you're welcome. It's so funny. I have been a guest on over 30 podcasts, but never in this software that I also use. So when we were behind the screens, I was like, where's the record button? And then I was like, oh yeah, April, you're not in charge. You just get to be the guest.
You get to just sit back and enjoy the guesting. Yes. So I love it. Well, April, why don't you take 30 seconds and catch us up on what your business is, where you're located. Just give us a little lowdown.
Awesome. So my business is called the Vixen Gathering. And there is meaning behind that name. We can go there if you'd like. But I am a business consultant and high performance coach to female founders, I like to say. And the reason I say that is I have a lot of CEOs reach out to me for coaching, but it's just different, right? So one-on-one, it's fine, but I love my community coaching. And when it's someone who actually founded the business versus someone who was assigned a CEO, it's just different issues that they're dealing with.
Totally.
So as you know, the more specific you are about who you serve, the better you serve them, I believe. And so I had a lovely woman yesterday chatting, and I was just like, I just don't think what we do is aligned for what you're looking for. I'm so sorry, which I know sounds crazy to anyone starting their business because they're like, I'll take the client. But, you know, I was a financial advisor for 16 years. And at the beginning, you are hungry and you do take clients. And what happens is if they are not aligned, they become a service issue down the road, right?
And they become a lesson.
Yes. My grandfather always says you have to pay your tuition. So like that's part of your tuition, right?
Totally. Tuition client. I like that. I like that a lot.
Yeah.
April, what is the significance of Vixen? Why did you choose that for your name?
So it's interesting because when I was shifting careers, I just knew I wanted to make impact in another way. It's interesting because I heard a definition of faith recently that was like, you take the first step in the dark and then the path starts lighting with each step, right? And that was very much me. I just knew I was supposed to do something different. I had this vision, literal vision that kept coming to me, like through exercises from coaches I was working with and reading books, etc. But I really didn't know how to make it happen or what it meant. And so, long story short, I was a lawyer. I was a financial advisor, very male-dominated industries. I have a ton of male friends from those industries, right? And so my intent was not to only work with women when I started, but I went through this beautiful journey of connecting with other female entrepreneurs, and I just enjoyed the relationship so much. And then I grew in my spirituality, and spiritually, what feeds a woman versus a man or any other gender or sex is just different, right? And so I just thought I could do more aligned coaching and consulting if I only worked with women. And thus, the Vixen Gathering was born because if you look up the definition of a vixen, which is a female fox, it is the only species where the female is the attractor, like the more attractive. Normally, it's the male attracting. And just if you read the characteristics of a female fox, you know, it's very close to an empowered woman. And also, I think we take ourselves too seriously. And remember, I was regulated by the SEC for 16 years, had a TV show, had to watch what I say. And so I wanted to be a little more cheeky this time around, thus the Vixen Gathering. And gathering is because as we come together as women, like, we are stronger and the feminine energy increases. And I just think our world needs a lot more feminine energy and love right now. So that's where Vixen and Gathering came from, to make the Vixen Gathering.
I love that. I love that, April. And when I'm thinking about the journey of building that business, and you're right, like a founder has different concerns than someone who has come in to be the executive that operates everything.
Yeah.
That is so true. So talk to me a little bit about coaching. It sounds like it played a really big role in how you decided what to pivot into, but then you also became a certified high performance coach. You went all in on coaching. Like what is it about coaching that you believe in so much?
Again, when the journey began, it wasn't necessarily coaching. To be honest, what my vision was the view from the stage at Madison Square Garden. So it was never me on the stage, but it was the view of the impact and like the love in the room. So that's our big, hairy, audacious goal at Vixen Gathering, that one day we're going to have a big feminine love fest of all these empowered women in Madison Square Garden. So this happened in 2020 was the final sign. And I was like, okay, I got to do something, or the 2x4 is coming to my forehead. Because, I feel like our destiny, God whispers to us, then he talks to us. And then if we don't listen, like calamity comes and we have no choice. And so that's happened to me enough that I was like, okay, it's April 2020. I own a financial planning company. My team is now remote for the first 15 days. And I have a lot of responsibility, but I have to figure this stuff out, right? Like I have to figure out what I'm meant to do. And so if you think about it, in 2020, there were no stages, right? And so I was like, I don't understand. I understand I'm supposed to impact people. I'm understanding I'm supposed to bring people together, but I don't understand what that looks like. So thus was the first step in the dark. And then, like I said, just through conversations with women, like we were going through so much change in 2020. And Amanda, honestly, I'm born to thrive on change. My Colby's a 3394. I'm a 9 quick start, which means I'll jump off the cliff and figure out if my parachute works on the way down. And most people are not built this way. So I just understood that I would be a good guide through change. And I don't know about you, but I don't think the change has stopped since 2020. I mean, this year we almost get whiplash on things going on every week. And so I was like, okay, well, how can I guide people through change? And thus I came upon coaching. And then I understood that consulting was slightly different than coaching. So I was like, well, kind of I can do both because I have experience, right? So yeah, and getting certified, you're right. I did deep dive because you're certified high performance coach, and it's 4 solid days that you're not allowed to get off of Zoom or you don't get your certificate. Like this is not a weenie program. And I recertify every 6 months and we only have to every 2 years, because I want to be
every
really
2,
good.
but yeah.
Yeah, I'm curious I really want to be good at what I do, and I want to bring value to my clients. And I want them to do the work, and I want their lives to improve. And that's why I do what I do.
Change comes from within, but it also comes from outside. And one of the things that I've noticed really makes a big difference to coaching quality is to serve your clients like crazy. Like, I think one of the things that a lot of coaches really struggle with is attracting enough clients to feel like they're really all in and they're really doing this. But I love the reminder that change comes from outside as well, because it can come outside by chance. To your point, there's so many things happening in the world, but it can also come up from outside in the sense of like when you go through recertification or you go through programs and you get this additional perspective. Because I think sometimes when you're just working with client after client after client, it can create a bit of like this echo chamber thing going on.
Yeah.
And I think it's useful to have additional perspectives and exposure to like different environments as well. So that makes a ton of sense. So April, what are you building? Like what's next? What are you excited about?
Yeah, I love what you said about the echo chamber. And, I was lucky enough to do that in my financial practice because it can very much be an echo chamber, like, oh, send this mailer, do this dinner seminar, do this, which is amazing to begin with. Like, you can build your business quickly. But then, being a 9 quick start, I got bored and I was like, okay, what else is there? So, like, I started going outside of my industry to see what other people were doing. And that was huge. So what I'm building now is I have the Vixen Founders Collective, which is my collective of female founders, and we do personal growth, so the high performance curriculum. We are now adding on Marketing Mondays, where we do deep dive into marketing. And again, I wasn't doing it before because I didn't know if I was qualified to help them with marketing. And again, it's like imposter syndrome, right? And then I realized, okay, but I grew a whole business 16 years marketing, right? Like, just because I have a newer business doesn't mean I'm not good at marketing.
Market. Just as your friend, I'm like, shut up. You don't have imposter syndrome. You're just doing something new. It's just nerves. Yeah. I love it. I love it. But I think that's one of the cool things about what I notice among founders and female founders, but also like I work more broadly just with coaches in general, male, female.
Yeah.
But I noticed that same sense of responsibility to do a good job. And like, that's a really good thing. Like, I like that you had that moment of pause. I think a lot of times people kind of say, oh, I have imposter syndrome and then I can't do the thing. And I know that's not you. But I actually think that role of the pause, of like just giving yourself a little bit of pause and saying like, wait, hang on a second. Do I have something to say here? Is this going to be authentically valuable?
Yeah.
And then being able to like recognize, hey, I've got 16 years. And I think the key thing is like the people that you're coaching, very likely this is their first year or their second year of needing to do marketing at all. So that little pause actually ultimately gave you confidence.
Well, and what's even more important is I've literally spent millions of dollars on marketing, right? And most people starting a business can't spend millions of dollars. I mean, that's over 16 years. But honestly, since starting the Vixen Gathering in 2020, I've probably spent $500,000 on learning things, like doing, you invest in too. And again, I was blessed because I sold a company to be able to do that. And so in 1 year, I learned so freaking much. It was crazy. And then I'm like, why wouldn't I be sharing this with my clients, right?
Totally.
And so again, when you turn the lens on how can I bring value, not like what am I good at, like the conversation changes. And so what's interesting is now my clients are like, hey, can you help me build my marketing? And so I'm doing it performance-based because, again, they don't have the funds put in. So I'm like, okay, cool, I'll help you build this. And I get 25% of the back end of this campaign. And they're like, okay. And like, so that's like super fun for me because it's like, okay, I love helping people make money, right? And it's combining my like nerdiness for marketing and presentations. And now I get to go like hear speakers speak because it's part of my job because like I'm breaking it down so I can teach my clients, right? I'm like, what life could be better?
Yeah, exactly. I love that distinction of like, what am I already good at, which is thinking in the current tense and the current space, and it's not really creating that vision for future versus like, well, what is the value? So I'm gonna ask you to actually define value. What is it? Because we say it all the time in the coaching space and the business space. We're always saying add value, add value, add value. Like, if you were to define value, like what is it? How do you know you really are versus maybe getting kind of the ego thing going on of like, I want to be appreciated?
That's a great question because you have to keep the ego out of it. So this is something I naturally did. And I'm also a trained spiritual shamanic healer for God. So like my spirituality has extremely deepened since 2019 as well as I'm building this new business. So I have a better understanding of, so I would define value from a spiritual perspective, but I was doing this before I even understood that. So for example, if I was giving a dinner seminar for my financial planning firm, which is how we got our new clients, sometimes I just be like, and, for a bit of the time, we all have different journeys. I now speak to God. For a bit of the time, I was using the term universe. I wasn't speaking to God, right? And I was on my journey. So I was either asking the universe or God, like, I just closed my eyes before I started. I'd be like, someone in this room needs a message tonight. Please send me the message. I am the vessel, right? And so it was just, if I can make a difference in one person's life in the room, great, I won. And sometimes you don't know. I met a woman last year and she was like, oh my gosh, I watched your TV show for years. You changed my life. Like, never met this woman in my life. She wasn't a client. She paid me no money. And she went on and on and on about how she changed the trajectory of she and her mother's financial future from the advice they got from me on TV. And so, again, it goes back to faith. You just have to show up and have the humility to know that you are a vessel of value, however you define that. Like, someone needs a message. Someone needs to be seen and heard at that moment. And this is what I'm here to do. So for me, that's how I bring value. Sometimes it's one-on-one coaching. Right now, I'm focused on okay, send me whatever message the audience needs to hear that we're talking to, right? Yeah. Or it could be from stage or whatever, but it's always the same.
Love that. I really pulled out of that this little phrase of make a difference in their life. That's value. You've made a difference in their life. Yeah. And, I think something that make value a little harder to discern is whether someone does feel that impact. Like, do they feel that there's been a change in trajectory or that there is an enhancement in experience in some way? And, I personally think that value very much is in the eye of the beholder, so there could have been a lot of people who saw your show and it didn't mean much to them at the time. So it was just playing in the background versus this woman and her mother, it was it literally changed everything. So I think what makes value sometimes hard to commit to delivering is because you just don't know what's going to land in that role of faith that it is going to land, and to take care to notice when it does and have gratitude for that.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think you just have to have trust and faith. And if you get too mental about it, that's when you'll talk yourself out of it, right? That's when you're trying to quantify the value you're bringing or because the real challenge is sometimes, like you said, it's in the eye of the beholder. And sometimes they don't get the value till later, right? Like, maybe a message you said is still in their head and then something happens and they're like, so I don't know, but I'm a person of deep, deep faith. And so I trust my intuition. And if I'm pointed in a direction, I trust that there's a reason. And every night I thank God for whatever impact I brought to the world and for all the beauty I had in my life, etc. And sometimes you're being grateful blind, if that makes sense, because you don't really know, but you're still like, hey, thank you for everything wonderful that happened today.
Yeah, I love that. I really believe in having a strong practice around gratitude. And sometimes it's just grateful for this feeling, or I'm just fully immersed in things. And, I think there's a lot of pressure sometimes, especially in a really tech obsessed kind of culture, that everything has to be codified, in great detail. And I'm a big fan of process. I love systems and everything, but I think that it gets messy, especially with coaching. One thing that comes up a lot is value, pricing. And it kind of gets conflated, I think, and I'd love your take on this. I think the price that you charge for the programs gets a little conflated with what is your sense of self-worth and what is your sense of value? What's your take on that in terms of the wrestling of am I pricing appropriately for value here? And if I can't quantify value, then how the heck am I supposed to quantify price?
So it's interesting because I encounter this a lot with my clients when you talk about the sense of self-worth. for me, I have the opposite attitude. I'm like, okay, if you want to charge this much, build it to be worth that much, right? Like, let's reverse engineer. It's not like, here's what I'm giving, how much is it worth? So if it's like, okay, for my time and all the effort, I want to charge this much. Okay, what needs to go into it and how do I need to over deliver to go there? And I actually just joined Russell Brunson's mastermind, and I did a 3-day, 8-hour, challenge with him, which again, that's why I'm able to help my clients, because they don't have freaking time to do a 3-day, 8-hour course, right? So I go take the course, and what I learn, they benefit from. And he is really good at the value stack, like building the value stack, right? And I know we get it muddled from other people that have studied from him, but really understanding the psychology behind it kind of helped me solidify that better. I don't know if I'm articulating this well, but I think you have to understand human psychology, and you just have to trust, okay, I'm going to deliver the value. I mean, I had someone who wanted to leave the Vixen Collective, and I was like, okay, because it's just the founding members right now. It's the mid-tier. I said, okay, totally. Like, you have one payment left. I'm happy to give it to you, but could you give me feedback, right? And we talked, and she said, well, I need a little more hand-holding. Like, we're doing a lot of like personal development, which is one part. I just hadn't started the other parts yet, right? And I was like, well, what are you hoping to get? How can I serve you? And I was like, look, let's do a 30-minute like coaching call. And then she was like, oh my gosh. And then based on her feedback, I've added other elements to the group. And I was like, look, you don't have to pay me the last payment. Just stay until the end of the year. And then you tell me your final decision, and she'll decide. And regardless if she stays or not, like, I also just want a fan for life, which is not my purpose. My purpose is, hey, I appreciate you guys being the founding members and helping me figure this out. So I'm going to bring you value, right? And value is, again, in their eyes, because everybody else loves the curriculum we're going through, and people have doubled and tripled their revenue and gotten great results. So I'm like, okay, let me learn why you weren't aligned for this. So in the future, I can see that ahead of time and give someone a heads up. Like, hey, I know, which I just did with a woman yesterday. I said, hey, look, I love your energy. I'd love to have you on my podcast. I honestly don't think you're aligned with what we're doing in the collective, but I know a ton of groups. And when the right one comes up for you, I'll reach out and make a suggestion. Is that okay? And she was like, yes. Because
Yeah, I love that.
it's not worth the pain of being, what is it, unaligned or disaligned? I don't even know the appropriate term.
Out of alignment.
When you're out of alignment. Yeah, thank you. I'm making up words.
My favorite. I love made up words. April, what would you say? I love asking for this segment. What would you say are the 3 things that a coach should keep in mind if they don't want to suck?
Oof. Be prepared. I think a lot of times, look, I'm super intuitive. I can totally wing a coaching session and it's going to be great. Do I want to do that? No. I'm going in with no chinks in my armor. And then if we bob and weave in the section, during the session, then I can bob and weave and use my intuition there, right? But I am not going in just depending on my intuition. So, I mean, when I was a lawyer, that was the case. When I was a financial planner, that was the case. Like, you do not go into a meeting unprepared. You are a paid professional that your client is paying you, right? So
It's good.
we have to, really, especially in today's like very lackadaisical, casual, I'm wearing underwear and a shirt because we're on Zoom kind of world. Like, sorry, I'm not wearing underwear and a shirt, by the way. But I mean, I feel this concept of paid professional got lost, and Brenda Burchard said it at our last certification. I was like, that's it. That's the term I'm looking for. I couldn't put my finger on what I was trying to say. So, okay, you asked me for 3 things. I'll try to keep this brief. So 1, be prepared. 2, like, lead with your heart. Like, I think, you have to have boundaries, but like genuinely care about your clients and their lives. We do this to make the future better for people. So like, stick with your heart. And number 3, I mean, you have to be a good listener. You have to be a good listener. And listening is a skill you can hone. So if you feel you're not good at it, you can practice.
That's so good. Yeah, it's so true. Though I would say all 3 of those things are very skill developable things. Like, you can get better at all of them. April, what's the best way for people to follow you and connect with you?
Awesome. Thanks so much for asking. Well, they can check out my podcast, The Vixen Voice, and they can check out the 2 episodes you've been on with me. And we're on Apple, Spotify, and on YouTube under Vixen Gathering. And also, I have a Facebook group, Abundant Business Women. It's a private group, so if anyone wants to join the conversation. And our website is vixengathering.com, and so is most of our social media.
That's amazing. Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us, April.
Yeah, it was so fun. I'm so excited to chat with your audience, and I always love seeing you.
Love it. Love it. And listener, thank you so much for tuning in. Go ahead and subscribe so you don't miss another one of these awesome conversations. And then, hey, leave a 5-star review. April did a great job. She absolutely deserves your praise. And share this episode with 3 people who would really benefit from the message. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.